Welcome to episode 28 of Paranormal Unwrapped with Krista Risa and Jack Roth. Krista is a channel teacher and artist. Jack is an investigative journalist, author, and award-winning filmmaker. Tiffany Mac obtained her degree in broadcast journalism from the University of Kentucky Lexington in 2000. In addition to working as a producer with periodic co-hosting appearances on the Graylian Report podcast beginning in 2016, in the past, Tiffany has also worked as a weekly co-host on Shooting from the Lip, the KT Unearthly show with host Kevin Hale. Tiffany has traveled extensively and lived in Greece for a number of years, where she was employed at the NATO missile firing range, Namfi, an extensive missile firing range located at Suda Bay on the island of Crete, along with NSA Suda Bay. Tiffany's broadcast experience also includes employment with NPR, National Public Radio, beginning in 1998. As an ET experiencer abductee, her current interests include study of the unexplained, as well as issues relating to consciousness and events or occurrences that fall outside the normal range of human experience. Follow Tiffany on Twitter at TiffanyMac_ET. Welcome. Very grateful that you're here today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited about this.
Good. Yeah, no, this is great. And, I wanted to just kind of set this up for the audience. We're real excited to have Tiffany on today. And one of the things, I met Tiffany, my gosh, it must be going on at least 2 years ago. And the reason we met was John and I were vetting people. We were interviewing people for the second documentary because we wanted to focus on an Extraordinary the Seating. As people who have seen it know, we focus mainly on 3 individuals who are experiencers. And Tiffany's story, and she's going to explain it to you, is amazing. And we really wanted to have her be a part of this documentary. But as is the case with many abductees and experiencers, the timing has to be right. And a lot of people just aren't ready for that kind of thing. It's not the kind of thing where you can just have an experience and then be ready to tell the world about. And there are a lot of reasons for that. So for that reason, and Tiffany has an amazing story. We're going to talk about it all today. And that's why we're so excited to have her on. And so Tiffany, again, thanks for being with us. And yeah, let's start with how it all started for you. And then we'll go through all of your experiences.
Okay. So, my family is very different. We grew up sort of in a military family. My mom had 8 other brothers and sisters. So there were 6 girls in the family. My grandfather was in the Strategic Air Command. He wanted to be a pilot, and they said, no, you're going to be in intelligence. So he started right around 1947, I believe, and was at all the right places at all the right times. And he was a very interesting character, to say the least. He'd written over 1,000 short stories and poems by the time that he was ready to exit this world, and he left all of his paperwork to me, partly because I had mentioned that I was having some of these crazy experiences. And one of the things that I had talked to him right before he passed away, I was in the hospital with him, and I said, Granddaddy, what would you say if I said that I had been in contact with multiple extraterrestrials and different types of beings? And he said, I would have to say you're crazy. And I said, oh, okay. I said, but do you think I'm crazy? And he goes, listen to me. I would have to say you're crazy. And I said, but am I crazy? I said, but I see him. He goes, listen to me one more time. I would have to say you're crazy. And finally it sunk in that my grandfather wasn't calling me crazy. He was giving me a line that he was directed to say if anybody ever came to him and said that they had seen aliens. So, he was sort of, I asked him, what kind of security clearance did you have? I had a security clearance to a degree. And he said, you know who the president of the United States is? And I said, yes. And he goes, about 16 levels above him. And I was like, okay. And I think in part because he was a career man. You know, a president is in the office for maybe 4 years. Why do they need to know all of the secrets of the government and all of the secrets of the military and all of the secrets of the world? So you can't keep a 4-year president under lock and key for the rest of his life when it comes to secrecy. So I think that's why he said that. But anyway, so beyond that, obviously I was having experiences. And so he left me all of his paperwork. He left me his computers. He left me files upon files upon files. And it's really taken a lot of time to go through them. And we haven't gone through all of them. But there were pictures from different bases all over the world, which is fairly restricted since most bases you're not allowed to take pictures of, especially active bases. But we talked about some of the underground bases that were connected by these super fast trains. And you know, this is stuff that we speculate is there. You know, nobody can give us real answers to whether or not they're there. But we had this conversation, and my mind is just like, why don't regular people know this? You know, we in the UFO and ET community hear whispers and want to know more. And we ask these questions like, do they exist? And people do know. They're just mostly silenced, you know, classified. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to get those answers revealed. And so that was special to me. You know, it may not be special to anybody else, but just that little admission was special to me. And
that's huge. That's a huge thing.
Yeah. Thank you for telling us that.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only one. I mean, there's plenty of people who know it. It's just a matter of who you can trust with the information, I guess. So, but he was dying. He's like, anyway, right. He goes like, I'm going to tell you what I have to say. And then, you know, you can ask a few questions and that's it. So, but it all started like I started having these crazy experiences. All of the women in my family have had paranormal experiences, mental telepathy, psychic events. We all have this mental connection to one another. And even my daughter, my oldest daughter is 10 years old. She and I would have some mental connections. Like we would know what we were going to say before we said it, or, you know, and it's like, jinx, you know, constant jinx.
Double jinx.
Double jinx.
Triple dog jinx.
You can't talk. Okay. Anyways, but things like that happen so frequently and just randomly. Like we'll start singing a song and it'll come on the radio, or things like that, of that nature. But you know, I started seeing UFOs before I got pregnant, and didn't really make a whole lot of sense out of it. Didn't really care too much. I was never really interested in the sci-fi world or aliens and ETs until I started having these experiences. The first one happened when I was pregnant with my daughter, who's 10. And it was there were two beings. They were sort of orbs floating above my bed, and it almost looked like they had these. Do you remember the Tesla balls with the electricity? Sort of looked like that. The like electric shocks going out, and then there was this triangular face on the inside of it, and they had sort of like this blue shimmery look to them. And there were two beings, and when I started screaming, and I was like just freaking out, and they're like looking at me, like tilting their head like a dog would tilt its head when they're hearing a new noise that you're making. And then finally they're like, what can we do to make you stop screaming? And I'm like, get the fuck out of my head.
Whoa.
And as soon as like, I would try to close my eyes and pull my blankets over my head, and I could still see them in my head.
Oh,
and so
boy.
it was like, you get out. And my husband,
Wow.
He's like, what is going on? And I'm like, turn on the lights.
The blanket will protect you.
Right. That blanket is important. They can come through walls in your house, but that blanket they can't get through. So, you know, I apologize for cussing, but that's exactly what went through my head. And I'm sitting there screaming it. And my husband was like, what is going on? And, you know, other than saying intruder alert, there's really nothing that you can say because he didn't see it. And I'm like in shock because he doesn't see these big glowing beings.
Right.
So anyways, that was my first experience, and it shook me to the core. I really couldn't figure it out. And then they started coming more frequently. So once my daughters were born, my first daughter, we had a lot of little visitors. And once my second daughter was born, it amped up a lot.
How big you mean? Little like this, or like little visitors, like 3 foot? Or like...
Yeah, like little grays, like the Zeta grays. Yeah, sort of just maybe 3 foot visitors. And, they would just sort of, I'd wake up and they'd be around my bed, and that was a little freaky, and they wouldn't really do anything. And it got to the point where most of the time I'd look at them and I'd roll over and go back to sleep because I know they weren't going to be jumping on the bed or pulling my sheets off. I'd be like, okay. Yeah, because, after a certain amount of time, you get used to it. It's like, hey, how you doing, guys? I'm going back to sleep. Y'all are boring. And I don't know what happened after that.
So you didn't really feel really threatened to the point.
Oh, maybe the first 2 times.
Okay.
After that, I'm like, y'all. I mean, I really was just like, well, if y'all aren't going to leave, I'm just going to go back to sleep. So what happened after that, I don't know. There were a few really intense situations. And my husband worked nights for most of our marriage. So most of the time he wasn't there to be entertained by all these antics anyway. Not that he would believe them. He doesn't believe it in anything like that. He's Irish Catholic, and that's about it. So whatever that goes to.
Well, Tiffany, let me ask you something. Let me interrupt for 1 second, because I want to ask you at this point. So now you've had your second child. Along the way, were there any other signs of any kind of maybe abduction or with the pregnancies or anything? Or was it just to this point you were unaware, or no?
Well, we can backtrack a little bit, because there was when I got back from Greece, when I was in Greece, I worked on a base, the NATO base, and I would work a lot of third shifts. I was like a manager, a shift manager. So I would work a lot of third shifts, and I would be the only person in the building. It was on this base, I pretty much acquired other buildings during our Operation Iraqi Freedom. So we were converting this base that had housing, but it hadn't been in operation, it hadn't been used for so many years. So we had to convert old buildings into housing for our men and women that were coming back over, starting to really use the base heavy because of Operation Iraqi Freedom. So anyway, so what I did was I would be there at night doing work. Anyway, so sometimes I would come and there'd be over in a flash. And I'm like, where did the 8 hours go? I mean, literally a flash. Then there were some times where these people would come in and I'd be so freaked out. And it was like people that weren't supposed to be there. And I didn't quite make any kind of connection. But I started bringing one of my Belgian Shepherds to work with me because I was just freaked out. So anyways, after that, when I came back to the States, I had, at 18, 19, I was told that I would never have kids. I had an endometriosis and it was so bad, you'd never have kids. Well, when I came back to the States, I ended up having so many painful periods and things like that, where there would be times where I felt movement, like I'd feel like I was pregnant, there'd be movement, and then it would go away and I'd be like, that was weird, having these month or 2 month weird situations, and they were fairly frequent. So then I end up going, and my mom's like, why don't you just go and have the exploratory surgery? We'll pay for it. You don't have to worry about anything, and you can stay home and I'll help take care of you. So so I went and had the surgery, and I came out of surgery, and my mom and my dad were there, and my parents had been divorced since I was like 3 years old. So they were sitting there and they were very supportive. And And there's a funny story about this too. So my dad's jibber-jawing the whole time, and she's like, will you please shut up? So I'll get back to that in a second though, because I think it is important. So anyways, the doctor comes in, same doctor I've had since I was 16 years old. And her name is Rebecca Booth. And she says, she goes, I can't believe we waited this long. And I'm still coming out and I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you had so many adhesions. It took us 3 hours to go in and cut everything out and burn everything out on the inside and outside of your uterus. And she said, how many abortions have you had? And I said, abortions? I said, I'm 26 years old. I'm Catholic. I said, I've never had an abortion. You told me when I was 18, I would never have kids. What are you talking about? She said, your uterus is so scarred up. There's not going to be a place where you can implant a baby. You'll never be able to have a kid. And she said, you will. And of course, goosebumps. And I'm like bawling, and my mom's bawling, and my dad's bawling. And for like a year after that, my mom is like, you know what, we'll pay for adoption when it comes time to that. You don't have to worry about that. We can get a surrogate. We can do all these things if you want to have kids. So I'm going along throughout my life. I get married at 28. And then at 33, I have Madeline. And when I got pregnant, it was like, holy crap, I'm pregnant. And, I had gone through some fertility. I tried to take Clomid and a few things. And the doctor's like, look, we can try, but it's not going to happen. And I was just like, I just want to try. Let's just try.
Oh.
And when I got pregnant with her, I got a message in my sleep, and it was like, she is your gift. Take care of her. And it was like, oh, so I've always said, you are my gift. You're my gift. Both of you are my miracles. You're my gifts. And my second pregnancy was horrendous. They told me at 12 weeks that it was a blighted ovum. There's no heartbeat. There's no baby, nothing. And I was like, I just felt her moving this morning. And they're like, nope, no baby. And they wanted to give me the abortion pill to get rid of it. And I was like, no, that ain't happening. No. So then at another ultrasound, I found out that she was alive. And
Oh my God.
so then they started telling me that she had like this trisomy 15, trisomy 18. Oh, you should still get rid of it. It's not going to be a viable baby. It's if you end up going through the pregnancy, it'll probably be stillborn or die at birth or maybe live a day. She's perfectly fine. And she was hooked up for 2 weeks in NCU or in the NICU. And it's like, these doctors don't have a clue. There's something else going on here.
That is
I'm
so
like, this is my gift. She's another gift. They told me this was a gift. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. She's going to be fine. So anyways, after she was born, everything just really amped up. I started having a lot of conscious episodes, all these visitors coming in, and tall beings and, little ones. And I started waking up in different places. And one of them, I awoke in this cave, and it was like carved out and looked sort of like, I don't know how it could have been carved out. It looked like it was carved, chiseled with some kind of, have you ever seen those bored holes, the big, huge caverns that they build with bored holes, and they have sort of a ring around them as they go through? So that's sort of what it looked like. And it had the weirdest lights strung throughout the hall going down the way. And I'm on a stretcher, and I can't move. And I look up to my left, and there's this tall gray standing there. And he like put a finger on my head, and he said, go back to sleep. I'm like, okay, why not? So that was a strange one, because I'm like, how did I get? Okay, so what's going on here? I'm in a cave, and it's a really weird one. And I did something very strange, which I started to do, and I can still do it, but I mean, it sounds bizarre. It's like bending your sight. like I could focus my mind so much that I could go down the hall and see what was around the corner. And I've started to be able to do this with different like times when I'm immobile in different places. I can focus my mind and see down the hallway, or see through a door and around a corner, or see what's going on in the next room. And I don't know how to describe it other than that. I've never really talked to anybody extensively about it. I've never really told anybody about it. But so I don't know what that is and what that's called. But so I've been able to do that.
So you were able to, okay. So, and again, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but I think there's certain things at certain points that are interesting. First, which is very interesting, and I don't know if you're aware of this, April Malloy, who is in the second film, she talks about having a very similar experience where she couldn't get pregnant. Her and her husband were trying to have a child. And then she almost heard a whisper in her ear, was like, this one's yours. This is yours.
Yeah. This is
it was the same kind of message. Right. And she always felt it was a gift from them to say, here, we will make sure that no matter what, this baby will be born, and it's yours. It's not ours. It's yours.
Well, and that's right. Like, this is the one that you'll be able to raise.
Right.
Yeah.
Which in a way it's like, and that's why I want to ask you a couple things at this point. Are you, you're starting to realize what's happening more? Are you resentful, angry, happy? How do you feel at this point?
At the point when I had my children, or just right now today?
Well, not today, but like back then when you were first starting to realize what
I didn't make a connection. I really didn't. I just, none of this really made sense until about 5 years ago. I mean, I was still living in a confused state. I was still trying to take care of my babies. I was, 24 hours a day it was mommy mind 24 hours a day for the first like 3-4 years, and when I had Lily, my second child, she never slept. Like, she'd wake up 6 times a night. And for the first 3 years, I never slept. So no, I didn't think about it. What are you going to do? You can't dwell on things that you can't take pictures of, or nobody can see them but you. It wasn't a reality at the moment. Yes, it's happening, but it wasn't something I could focus on, So when I started asking questions, I saw a UFO over. I have a home in Destin, Florida, and it's right on the beach. And so I was out on the balcony, and I was watching the water. It was a full moon. It was in October, I think 2014 maybe. And I saw this massive light, and it was straight up from the sky, and it came straight down in front of me and landed in the water, and all I saw was the water light up, and nothing else, nothing. And it blew my mind. Now, there's an Air Force base close to us. It's Eglin Air Force Base. And so, I figured, oh my God, it's going to be all over the news. They're going to have, talk about it at base. There's going to be something going on. And nothing. And honestly, I had a girl, one of my girlfriends from college was in intelligence, and she was there that night. She actually was sleeping in my guest bedroom, and I ran in and woke her up, and she's like, "That's awesome." No, I have no clue what that was. I'm like, okay, never mind. So then I started contacting like MUFON and looking up all of these different sites on spotting and tracking and identifying UFOs or lights in the sky. Anyway, so that's how I got connected back into the whole radio world, is contacting MUFON, and then they connect me with this person, and the investigator was just starting a show. Everything is very synchronistic. Like you were saying, there's like, things don't just fall in your lap. Bull crap. This fell back in my lap. For some reason, I was supposed to get back into radio, and that was how it started. And of course, I didn't want to talk about all of my experiences because, I was not confident enough to discuss them. So, you know, in the back of my head, I'm thinking someday I'll say it. Someday I'll say it. But it took a while.
So you've been doing the podcast since 2016?
October 2015, I believe. Yeah.
And this is
right
exopolitics or experience or topics.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I never really described my experiences. But anyways, back to the babies. So that, you know, yes, they were a gift. And yes, they do have their own little issues. My 10-year-old has seen what she calls the little things, which are actually what I consider to be orbs. And she's seen them since she was able to talk about them. So she's about 2 years old. And I can't remember, Jack, if we mentioned this on our show with Geraldine and Sierra or not. But so when she was about 2.5, 3, maybe 3 at the most. And she was speaking in full sentences. And I have a little video of this. And I said, tell me about the little things, because she'd been talking about them for a long time. And now she was able to really communicate well. And she says, they're like circles, and they are different colors, and they float around the room and they land on me. And I said, okay. I said, do they talk to you? And she goes, no, they don't have mouths. I'm like, okay. And I said, well, what do they do? And she goes, they go in. She goes, you see these, mommy? And she's pointing at her veins. And I said, yes. And she goes, that's our blood. And I said, okay. And she goes, I said, well, what do they do to your blood? She goes, they go inside and check to see if I'm okay. And I said, all right. I said, do they do that to mommy? And she goes, no, silly. They already have yours. And it's like,
oh my God.
I mean, I had goosebumps and I was like, crap. So that's like, I was like, well, I guess I can't prevent anything from happening with my girls. You know, they're going to do what they want. But luckily, I don't see little orbs flying around where I'd be like, orbs. Now I'm just seeing little aliens of all shapes and sizes. I'd rather see the orbs, maybe. I don't know. But
so there's been a progression, and I know that Christy, you weren't. So because these.
Okay, so all this is coming to you, right? You know, you're doing your job in places where that's not really the expectation. Is maybe, you know, Grandpa had a little hint of it. And it's coming into your lab, and it's coming through now your children. So how did you, in your mind, determine your personal connection with outer space? Did it ever click, or is it still kind of like, well, I don't know what my whole deal in this whole big picture is, or is it very clear to you?
I'll tell you, you know, Sierra was talking about how she was involved in the military on a number of levels. Well, the same thing is with me. My grandfather sort of initiated our family into this thing, and I couldn't get away from it. I was accepted into the Air Force Academy, one of 33 girls across the country in 1996. And I was told by 9 pilots, don't do it. Don't go. Do not go to the Air Force Academy. And I'm like, why not? I had a presidential nomination. You know, it's like, they're like, don't go. So my grandfather was so excited. His granddaughter's going to the Air Force Academy. It's, you know, I was the first one to go to college. And, you know, it was like, he was so excited.
Why did they say don't go?
Well, we'll get to that. So I don't go. So I go to UK, go into broadcast journalism, you know, work for 2 different Fox channels, which sucked. And then NPR, which it was okay. It wasn't very entertaining at that time. It wasn't like talking UFOs and aliens. It was talking tobacco and horses. So, but yeah, so then I ended up going to Greece on vacation. And within 3 days, this guy comes up to me and says, hey, you want a job with the DOD? And I'm like, I came here to have fun. I don't know about a job. And so,
what's DOD?
Department of Defense.
Okay.
So I was like, I guess I'll be working for the government no matter what I do. On some level, this is going to come back to me. And I was just like, okay, whatever, I'm going to stay. And I really loved Crete. I loved it. I loved Greece. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll work here. And my grandfather was like, all right, that's good. You can do that. And then my mom was freaking out. She's like, I'm cutting you off. You can't do this to me. Living on the other side of the planet.
I'm cutting you off because you're living in Greece.
Yeah. So, she's like, what am I supposed to do with your car? I was like, I don't know, sell it, get rid of it. I don't care. This is what I'm going to do. So anyways, I think there was a plan. Like, even though I didn't go into the Air Force, I was still working for the military. It's like, what the heck? I didn't make this plan, but it fell into my lap. This is what was supposed to happen. And a lot of my visitations over the past 2 years have involved a military figure. And he's probably been the most terrifying of all of them. He comes in and starts out in fatigues and is very intimidating, is trying to get the dogs on the bottom of my bed or trying to grab me. And there's always this scuffle and like me saying, sir, you can't do this. Sir, you shouldn't be here. And my fiance now, he's like, stop calling him sir. Don't give him any respect. I'm like, dude, this guy can walk through walls. I don't know what else he can do. I'm going to give him a little bit of respect and say, sir, you can't be here. Sir, you can't touch my dog. Sir, you can't touch my children. This guy then changes his look. His look changes completely. It goes from a man and it shapeshifts into almost like a reptilian face, like a dragon face almost. And I think it's meant to intimidate and cause fear. And at the beginning it did. For the first year it did, or maybe the first 6 months. And then after a certain amount of time, I'm just like, what do you want? You just want to watch me sleep, or what's the deal here? Just don't touch my dogs and my kids. So the first 3 times that this guy showed up, my dog ended up pooping blood for 3 days. The second time, I ended up doing the same thing for 3 days. The third time was with my fiance up in his house. A lot of it has happened here too. I'll get into that in a second. But so the third time there was a laser that was shot and I'm like, oh my God, he's got a laser on your face. And it was on his face and he's just like, where is he? I'm going to get him this time. And I'm just like, he's jumping out of bed, running around the room. And anyways, I'm like, you're right there. He's like, can't do anything about it. So anyways, he goes back to sleep finally after probably an hour of just shaking in bed with frustration and wakes up to feeling like his face is on fire and his left arm is tingly and numb and he feels like he's having a heart attack. He's like, I'm having a heart attack and I'm burning. I'm on fire. And so there's like physical problems that result from these visits from these entities. So they're not always love and light and passive. Some of them are aggressive and I don't know what the situation is, but there's different beings that come up. So when I moved into this house with my fiance, I moved in about a year and a half ago. And we started putting up cameras in the room. We've got 4 night vision cameras that are facing the bed, which sounds really kinky, but it's not. I mean, I'm seriously, it's just for the aliens, right? So anyways, there's 4 cameras that are filming 24 hours a day. And during those time periods when I'm having experiences, you can see me get up or you see him get up and you see us reacting. And sometimes you'll see the dogs and the cats reacting. But most of the time, all you see are maybe some orbs that are flying around, but nothing else. And it's like, why can't I catch these guys like Stan Romanek on film? I don't get it. But probably the most entertaining visitation that we had was with Brent, my fiance. He's a pilot for a big company. I can't really say too much about it because I don't want his job to be interfered with. But he's also a flight deck officer, which is sort of like like an air marshal. Part of Homeland Security, that type of thing. Anyway, so he's, ready to go. We have guns on the nightstands and we're, locked and loaded. You're not going to do anything. What are you going to do? Shoot your walls? No, it's not going to help. So anyways, the whole thing trying to protect yourself from these guys is impossible, but
Right.
one of the funniest
And
experience. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to, again, just go back a little bit. So, but this was difficult for you. Like, you're a very well put together person, and you're very well spoken, and you're confident. And which is great. And you've really learned how to deal with this in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
But there were tough times. I mean, you mentioned the fact that now you were married, and that was really hard for you, because if your spouse or significant other doesn't support what you're going through, right?
It ruined it. There was a lot of things that ruined it, but that was a big one. When you can't believe your partner, or you can't understand what they're going through, and you don't even try, you're going to lose. So, that's what happened. And I feel sorry that my children have, to have someone saying you're imagining things constantly, because that self-doubt is so hard for children, because they're totally confused anyway. And it was hard enough for me as an adult dealing with that. And I've always told my kids, come to me, ask me, tell me what's going on, and I will try to help you as best as I can. But I'm like, don't talk about it at school, because they go to a Catholic school, and religion class is very difficult, because she has so many different views, and from what we've gone through, that she asks questions that are inappropriate. And so that's tough. And I have to sort of warn her, you don't need to talk about that at school. Just come to me, and I will help you discuss it as it relates to the Bible or whatever they're going through.
She's a free thinker. And would you say that your daughters, would you describe them as perhaps indigo children? You said they're special.
Oh, absolutely. Now both of them, my oldest daughter has started making comic strips of dragons, and it's amazing. At 10 years old, she has read 6,000 pages in the past year on dragons, these books that are just incredible, these novels. And she went from not wanting to read to all of a sudden reading 6,000 pages of these novels in less than a school year. It was like, I don't know, 5 months. It's like, oh crap. She's a speed reader, very, very adept. She's in the top 99 percentile in science and math across the entire country, and has been since she was in kindergarten, and she's in 4th grade now. She has been accepted into the Duke Tips program, which is an educational academic program for gifted children. It's pretty much a straight pathway into Duke University. So they'll give her academic scholarships and things like that. She's in 4th grade,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have high hopes, as long as she can maintain focus, because most of the time she's just like, this is stupid, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But very artistic. When she was 6 years old, she won a NASA painting competition at Wallops Airfield.
My goodness. It's not often that kids are, it's usually, oh, you're a good artist or you're good at math. It's not an and.
I don't know. Yeah.
You know?
I don't know where the picture, I don't know where her painting is. I usually keep it close to me. It might be upstairs.
And you did show me at some point when I did talk to you, when we started talking the first time, back when, you did send some photos, a couple photos of your daughters, and they really are, I mean, they're beautiful, and they're Krista, you could, to me, it's like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. There's something ethereal going on here. Just they have that look,
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely. Yeah. And my oldest, she was asked to be a model to begin with when she was like 5 years old, and I was like, we'll do a few things with you if you want. And she was used for this little boutique out of it, I think out of Atlanta, called Jilly Boutique. And I mean, she's just stunning. There's just something about her, that her eyes are piercing, and they're both just really beautiful children. And I mean, I am their mom, so I guess I might be a little bit prejudiced.
No, but it's maybe. I mean, obviously you're going to be a little bit, but no, seriously, that's why I mentioned I saw the photos, and I mean, there's no question there's an ethereal quality to them. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah,
I think that's an objective. If that's objectively, that's a fair thing to say.
Well, thank you, thank you. Yeah, they're my little ET babies.
Do you feel that that have you noticed any repeating themes, Tiffany, where you're in a sort of placed into a position of authority? Do you feel that you have an authority and a say? Yes.
Okay, so this is really strange because I was going to go back to this. So I feel, and this has been going on for probably 10 years, that since I worked on this base, this job that I feel like I'm doing, I feel like I never sleep. So when I go to sleep, I feel like I'm always on duty. So what I do is I will go get these girls, usually young girls, and I bring them to the space. And it's not the base that I was on. It's not the base anywhere that I've ever seen before. But I bring them to the space, I get them set up in housing, and I show them around and show them what they're supposed to be doing. And I am very proud to be doing this. It's, I have a lot of pride in this. I take it seriously. I love it. And it's a linear path. Like it's not just like the same dream over and over again. It's different people. Sometimes the same positions, people in positions of authority there. It's always the same place. There have been times where it seems like there's been a time of war and struggle, and then it'll calm down. And so now it's sort of calmed down again. But for about a year there, it was very frustrating to me because I felt like, I was like, why is everything different? Why is it so stressful? Why are they so aggressive? What's going on? And I could never get a straight answer. And I would wake up really frustrated because I was so upset with the situation. Like, why? I don't understand why it was so bad. And of course, I feel like I'm living this double life. Like I'm schizophrenic. Like there's this one, like I'm living a life at night, like a split personality. I'm living a life at night, and then I live a, Tiffany McGahee life during the day. It's like Tiffany Mac at night. And what's funny is that I wrote this book called Daphne when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I just popped out 600 something pages while I was pregnant at work.
Wow.
And so my brother and everybody who's read the book, I haven't had it printed. I always sort of kept it private, but what's funny is the name of my character is Jennifer Daphne Vinsanto. My last name was Vincent. So Vinsanto is what I chose to write. Well, later in life, I found out that my dad's last name was actually Vincenti from Italy. So that was sort of crazy. I'm like, holy crap, Vinsanto Vincenti, it's pretty close. And then so my brother always teases that they're like, have you met Daphne yet? Talking to my fiance, have you met Daphne yet? I like saying I have a separate personality named Daphne. Well, okay, fine, whatever, haha. Because I do feel like, there's another life that I live. So
it's one of the many incredible things about your story is the fact that, we see these patterns when we talk to people who are experiencers and who have had these particular kinds of experiences with the pregnancies and the abductions and we assume at least hybridization experiments on some level, but you have both. One is there's that generational component. And there's definitely a generational component in your case. And the other is
my mom's sisters still have had ET experiences. I'm not the only one. I'm just the one that's sort of come out.
Right. So this may have been going on in your family for some generations now.
Well, my grandfather's older sister, so right around 1895, talked about seeing a craft and people coming out of it. and at their location at their house. So, I mean, I know it's not just me.
Whoa, in 1895?
1895
That's
to
incredible.
1900. Yeah.
I'm not in
That's
my head like,
incredible.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the
And
little
then
spaceman. Yep.
and then
They
the
just
other's the
thought he was
military.
nuts.
All
You're
right.
like, okay, whatever.
This Earth has a lot of fixing to do with. So the latest intel I got was this golden age just started, right? And with all these portals and things, it just seems like such a huge cleanup job. And I have so much empathy and compassion for people who are having these visitations and it's not being explained to them, and the beings they're not communicating clearly. They're
It's
being
hard.
kind of
I wonder
rude.
what is there's a communication gap between us. There's always something. Like, I've spent so many times just trying to ask questions and I can't get an answer. So I don't know if there's like a disconnect, if my telepathy button isn't working well, or
yeah,
what
right.
is
Like
it?
you have to turn on your language capacity.
Did the Benadryl I take like dumb me
right.
down, or
Yeah.
Good questions. I wish I had answers to that, because I wish, there's some people like Sierra, who says that she's what did she say? A conduit for these Pleiadians or whoever it is.
Right.
And I'm like, my God, I wish they gave me some answers. I don't get the answers.
Yeah, she was like, it's like an identity crisis. I mean, she seems to be aware of, and some experiences they know who they are and they know what their purpose is. But most, I don't think that's the case at all.
I know that my job is to bring in people and get them settled. That's it. They haven't given me any other information. Don't know where it is. Don't know if it's this planet. Have no clue. I've not given the information. I'm a lackey.
So bring people in, meaning through, babies
to the bases.
To the bases. Yeah.
Yeah, they're these.
Okay.
And so it looks like, because in the dream we're going into the astral plane dimension, and so a lot of experiencers are able to bring back knowledge upon their waking state. And so in some recent studies, I found there's multiple dimensions, and so looking for the patterns of what these dimensions are about. I think it's a sound thing to know that you're going at least to the same location. You're not time hopping to like multiverse stuff, because that would be like a lot to handle. And your soul has taken on some serious experiences. So did writing Daphne make was that cathartic? Do you want to share that book with people? Like, what is your process with that storytelling about?
I don't know if I think that I would like to. It's a big undertaking for me. Now that my kids are getting a little bit older, and my custody is every other week, I think that I will be able to focus on that a little bit more, to maybe get that published. But it's a large undertaking. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm totally ready to read your book. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Thank you. But, going back, you talk about the family connection, but so I'm RH negative. I'm sure they're going to come and wrestle me into some kind of black van or sedan, but my dad is also, my dad is also RH negative. And when I came back from Greece, we were both dying at the same time. Like, there was a point where I got a crazy virus. There were 12 people on the island that had it. The others were German tourists. And then there was me. I was the only one that survived the virus. They didn't really have a name for it. They didn't know what it was. I went down to 94 pounds. And they told my mom, they're like, you need to figure out how to get her body back, because the other ones are dead and she's not going to make it. So by the 8th day, they told her that, and she's freaking out. So, my stepfather was a CEO and CFO of a very large tobacco international company at the time, and they had travel doctors. And so what they did was they compiled a packet of pills, some really heavy duty killer drugs, just really heavy duty stuff. And they overnighted it to the base, which is illegal, but they did it anyway because it was the only way that I was going to be able to get the medications. So they overnighted it to the base. I got it and signed myself out because I said I didn't want to die in a hospital. So they said she is restricted to the house, and they took me out to the car and took me into the bedroom and gave me my pills, and that was the end of it. They were like, okay, this is, no
How
life
old were
support,
you?
nothing.
How old were you?
At the time I was probably maybe 24 years old.
Jesus Christ.
I think 24. So while I was in the hospital dying, my dad had an accident on a three-wheeler, and there was an accident with the three-wheeler and the amount of martinis.
Oh wow.
So he flipped the three-wheeler and broke his head on a tree and killed the tree and got crushed between it, and so he had just a fractured skull, and they're like, okay, he's probably not going to make it. Well, during that time we found out that he had a brain tumor. And so I came back, and I was taking him to the doctor every once in a while. He would ER because he was having these episodes of dizziness and things like that. So anyways, we found out that he had a brain tumor, and 10 years later, he didn't have a brain tumor anymore. He went back, and like they said, we're not going to do anything. It's, it's not we can't surgically remove it. And really just said, go on home, do what you're going to do. Well, 10 years later, we found out that the brain tumor's gone. He never had a problem with it. Every once in a while, he'd have some headaches and some dizziness. It just vanished. I don't know. I have no idea. It just vanished.
Wow.
I don't know too many people who have brain tumors that just vanish, but yeah. So and that's been medically questioned, and pictures and MRIs and all that fun stuff are absolutely real from the hospitals. So
this time, when you remember back on when they're transporting medications to you, does it now kind of seem like a blur, or is it just real? Do you ever get like flashbacks, or how do you look at that?
So while I was in the hospital, it was really bizarre because it's this little bitty tiny private hospital on the island of Crete, which is it's not like John Hopkins or anything. It's not like the Mayo Clinic. It's like this little bitty island hospital. Anyways, so at night, I remember I would wake up, or they would wake me up in the middle of the night to go down into the basement, into like this old dungeony place. And they would hook me up to this machine and like put this suction down my throat, this like hose down my throat, and then pull it out. And I'm choking and gagging and choking and gagging. And then I'd be wheeled back to bed. So when I tried to explain what was going on, when my boyfriend's father and mother would come in to visit me the next morning, I would try to explain what they'd been doing to me during the night. And they're like, you're hallucinating. There's no way they would do anything like that. We talked to the hospital staff. They're not doing anything like that. The doctors are at home in bed. They're not doing that. And so, I have these memories of being down in this like dungeon like area of the hospital, and my throat, I would be so much in pain. And I just remember like blood gushing from this hose, and like I'm in a freaking, I don't even know how to describe how terrified it was. It was like a hospital of horrors. But I don't even know if that really happened. I feel like it was happened, but I don't know why it would happen. So anyways, I ended up going home, and 2 weeks later I had emergency surgery. I was able to get back to the States and have emergency surgery on my throat.
I just want to say this in case anyone else has had something like it, the astral plane, the next dimension is the council channel explains that things get reversed, and it's true. It's like there's a energetic dimensional counterpart to our physical universe, and so it's very similar. But you can get information about our physical universe from the next dimension. It's just like slightly altered before you travel beyond that next dimension. So in a sense, it is a real experience. It's just like it's like a layered holographic experience, like putting your hand up and seeing a yellow aura around your hands. It's there. Not everyone is just able to perceive. But you recuperated in this tiny little horrible place, and how did that?
No, I didn't recuperate there. I signed myself out. I was like, I'm done with this place. I'm like, please take me home so I can die in my bed.
So they flew you back, or?
No, I mean, I literally, I mean, they took me back to my house on Crete. Yeah, they, with the restriction that I couldn't go anywhere else. And then within 2 weeks, I was able to get an emergency flight home and have an emergency surgery. And I had 2 holes in my throat. So I don't know what the holes were from. Was it from whatever, from the virus, or was it from what was being done to me at night? Was it, I don't know, because I don't have the knowledge.
Do you remember if I am sorry, do you remember if any strange people come in? Because some people have like some people, when they're deathly ill, they have nurses,
a healer.
Yeah, like that no one else sees, and someone comes through and they're healing you or helping.
I don't remember anything like that. I just remember the strange people that came and took me at night. So I don't know what really was going on. Was this a good intervention that kept me alive that I didn't understand? Or were the freaking Greek doctors just having fun and tormenting me? I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't know.
So I know that Krista wants to, because we talked about this earlier, the mantis creatures. What's going on with them today?
Well, they were actual mantids. I thought she meant the ET ones, but she meant
the
real ones.
Oh no, I've seen them too.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why it's just so overwhelming, is because, there's been times where I've seen these mantid beings and I just remember thinking how, like, not necessarily majestic, but sort of beautiful, in a very strange way. And so when I moved into my current house, which I'm trying to sell, I lived there since 2014 to about 2018, almost 19. But the first day that we moved in, my daughter found a praying mantis on her screen-in porch. And then she found another, and then she found another. And we're like, okay, well, we'll just keep them in the screen-in porch and we'll figure out how to take care of them. And we have had thousands of praying mantis. And the strangest thing is, like, they'll fall on me at the zoo. I had not seen a praying mantis but once in my life. And now they're like my familiars, like witches and cats, they're like my familiars. And it's crazy. So yeah, I don't know if there's a connection, but with us, we've really taken care of them with reverence. So
that's so cool. I just asked because me and my mom have been dreaming about them. But they're the ones that the one that pops up is just one, and it's from a deep space, so it's not like they show up all the time.
Does it feel like a doctor, they're
like doctor scientists? Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I feel the same way. So the interactions that I've had have been more in a caring way, not really just cold methodical, but I feel like there is an intelligence there that is loving in nature. I don't know. It's a little different.
It's cool.
Yeah, but I
That's
feel like
awesome.
I've become the mantis mom because of them.
Right. So Tiffany, where are you today with all of this?
Fairly comfortable.
Good.
Yeah, I've really gotten to the point where I feel like it's part of who I am, and I'm not going to stifle it. And thankfully, I'm with a partner who is loving and caring, and he has been an investigator of Bigfoot for the past 10 years, 15,
That's
13
awesome.
years. Yeah, so he's led investigations for finding Bigfoot, and with the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization and all these other
Wow.
places. And so he's into Bigfoot, but he's always been into UFOs. And he actually recently caught a UFO while he was in the air flying, and he got his first officer to film it because they were watching it. And so you hear him talking about, talking to air traffic control. Is there high altitude traffic at such and such, and you can hear him asking, and you hear air traffic control coming back and saying, no, we see no air traffic in your area. And he's like, well, I'm seeing this thing, and it's about this far away, and it's about this big. And so that's sort of interesting because, pilots are firsthand observers in the air, and, he spends most of his time in the air rather than Earth. So, he's been sky watching since he was 6 years old with his dad, and a very good observer. So
Well, good for
I
you
can,
though, too.
I can,
That's
and
great.
he's very supportive. He's really, he teases me sometimes. He's like, why don't you tell those suckers to let me see them? I'm going to get at them one day,
This
but
is funny when you look for them. It's hard to get, but when you're not trying, they always show up.
well, actually,
Murphy's.
before I go to bed, most of the time I'll know that they're coming. I'll have a feeling in my body where I feel like a humming or a buzzing or just a knowledge that it's going to happen. And sometimes I can tell the difference between a loving entity versus a little bit less loving entity. And sometimes I'll just turn my lights off or turn my lights on in the room and just keep them low, just to like ease my mental anxiety. Like sometimes I know when it's going to be a little bit more negative of a interaction. But I had a tall gray in my bedroom the other night, and Brent was getting up, and I was like, he's right there. And he's like, he's not right there. I said, he's right there. He's like, how tall is he? And I was like, I don't know, 7 feet. Our ceilings are like 9 or 10 feet. They're high ceilings. And I'm like, I don't know, 7 feet. But he's like, no, he's not there. I don't see him. He goes, he just walked right through him. I was like, okay, never mind.
It really makes people wonder though, how does that happen, right? Like why can some people see and other people can't? Other people can't. It's the same with ghosts.
How can you walk right through them? I don't know. I do have a quick story if you want to hear a quick one before we go.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's really humorous. I tell you, I take everything with a grain of salt, and I've gotten to the point where if I don't have humor in my life, I'll probably go batshit crazy and die. So, I've taken on, like, my fiance and I, we have such a good rapport with each other, and we always teasing and laughing and cutting up and having fun. And even though we're both serious about the topics, we know that we can have fun in the meantime and try to understand it together. So there was this one night, and in the far right corner of the room, this black guy with a captain hat like pops up in the room, and it's like it's almost like a portal that opened up, and I can see him in his space. And I was like, Brent, get up. And he's like, what is it? Where is he? Because he's like, where is he? At this point, he just knows, like, what's going on? Where is he? And so he's like, I said, well, there's a black guy, and he's in the corner of the room. He's like, what's he doing? And I said, I can't really tell. And as soon as I pointed at him, the guy, his eyes got huge, and he was like, oh crap, like this girl sees me. Like, where did you come from? And so it was like a really strange connection, because we were both like, we spooked each other. And he starts pushing some buttons like quick. He's like, oh crap, what? And like this like laser came out of it. So Brent's jumping up and he's like, where is he? I'm going to get him. And I was like, no, it's a portal. Don't do it. And so he comes running around and then I'm like, you can't see it. You can't see it. And so there's like laser beams and all this crap, like crazy stuff. It's all happening. And I'm like, how can you not see it? So anyways, he gets to it and the portal closes. And so he like smacks the wall. He's like, there's nothing there. I was like, that's because it closed.
And you're trying to sell your house.
I'm trying to sell my old house. This is a new house that I live in now. So, so the past year I've been in my fiance's house, but I still have my house available. I'm trying to sell it anyway. So anyway,
wow, that's crazy.
So the next morning, the funniest thing was he's like, yeah, man, I should have totally jumped out the window and said I got stuck through the portal and then come around the back of the house and come back in the front door. I was like, I'm like, you better not do anything like that. I would lose it. I would totally lose it. He's like, yeah, I figured he would. He goes, but I thought real hard about jumping out the window.
That's awesome.
I know it. Don't you jump out the window and tell me you went through a portal. That's all I can say. Got to have some honesty here.
Well, you need humor too. Like you said, that's good that there's humor.
There is.
They didn't teach us in school how to open and close portals. But
I know, right? Darn. But yeah, it's crazy.
Thank you for telling us the truth. And I'm sure some people are like jaw dropping, hearing this, but there's so many things, I'm not saying anything because, oh yeah, that person said that like that. Yeah, that's just like that too. So that's why it's so, what an honor that, you tell us what happened. So you can put the pieces together and learn the rules of the universe.
It's tough because, like I said, I've not come out about my experiences until the past few months because I couldn't, going through a divorce. My ex-husband tried to use everything from that situation. And if I had written anything down or said anything about it, I would have been slaughtered. I probably would have been in the nut house and the kids would have been gone and all, because it does happen. People really do not understand that this is a true aspect of our life. This is not really a joke. It's happening to these people. It's happening to people all over the world. And it's a terrifying situation that we cannot control. Not only can we not control it, we can't even find evidence most of the time for ourselves to prove that we are not lying, to prove that we are experiencing these things. If I've tried and tried and tried, and like I said, I can't catch anything on video other than orbs, and nobody in their right mind is going to say, well, that's an alien. Well, sorry, I don't have any other evidence. I wake up with bruises. I wake up with, different weird things. Lately I have been waking up with such pain in my hips and my shoulders that I feel like I'm being drilled in my hips, like the bones. And I'm like waking up with such pain. And it's like, why am I having this? I don't know. I have no idea. But there's very few people can actually provide evidence. And so I think that's partly why people are so speculative and why it's so difficult to understand your neighbor or your friend when they come to you and say, hey, I'm having some strange things happen. There's not a whole lot that you can do besides go to a psychiatrist, go to your doctor, get put on some antipsychotics. And you, that's it. It's amazing that there's no real path that you can take to get support. There are some groups out there now, but it's hard to sift. It's hard to sift through them to find the legit ones.
Because people that go through PTSD, military or from war or whatever, they have some.
Which is what they said I had.
Right, and you have the same PTSD, but there's no one's believing you, no one, and that's why and thank you for saying what you just said, because it's important that people need to be more empathetic. They need to realize that this is part of the human experience. People are having these experiences,
and there's no way to tell who's a contactee just by looking at them. You don't know what their nightly life is like, and it's and who are you to say that they're not experiencing what they're saying? That's the
Right.
difficult thing.
Exactly right. Well, that's why it's so great that you come on today and talk about this. And, we so appreciate it. Really appreciate it, because this
Thank
is
you.
important. These are important messages and important information for people to hear.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wish that I had all the answers right now. I just have momentary situations that I can pass on, and experiences, and just, I hope that anybody going through what I've gone through, what April's gone through, what Sierra and everybody's gone through, especially when it pertains to pregnancies and children and the hybrid program. It's going to be tough. It's a rough ride. It's not easy. And it's a constant emotional struggle. And compassion is what we need.
Yes. Very well said.
Very well said. I'm totally mesmerized. And yes, it's nothing we can really say except everyone go to Tiffany's Twitter.
I hate Twitter. I don't even use it. Go to my Facebook page if you want to send me a message.
Yeah.
Tiffany Mac.
Yeah.
I hate Twitter. What do you even do on Twitter?
I know, I'm the same way. Twitter is just that I that ship sailed. I'm too old for that.
I know. I don't know what just go to the Facebook page, Universal Secrets Podcast or Tiffany Mac. Share a story.
And also, your podcast, is that on Spotify? Or?
I have no idea. I
no
don't
worries.
know.
They'll find it.
It's
the millennials are like,
it's on YouTube. It's on Facebook.
Yeah.
Universal Secrets.
Yeah, it is.
Podcast.
It's on a couple, because I got the links after the show.
There are.
So yeah.
Don't
and
ask
it's really
me.
good.
I'm not in control of that.
And Tiffany, you do a really great job on the show. And Kevin, you guys are good. That was fun.
Thank you. I'm so glad you were
really
able to come on too. Yes, it was fun. We try to make it interesting and hopefully bring out a light sense to some of these experiencers, even though they're tough subjects.
Mm-hmm.
Got to bring up the right side.
Absolutely.
Right. Over now, everyone. And we will see you in episode 29. Bye, guys.
Bye.